I really just want to, so every day for about 15 years since I met my wife, there's about 5 verses that we say every morning. And so I just wanted to share those with you, but then also specifically say how they've impacted my life. So obviously the first one's that really it's one I've said since I've been a child, is the main one, Matthew 7:12. So in everything you do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the principles. Basically, treat others as you wish to be treated. It's what I'm sure all of our parents said when we were younger. I know my mom would say that to me regularly, and slap me if I didn't, but that's all right. So I would, that's for me, the foundation of everything I've ever tried to do.
That's the golden rule.
Yeah, exactly. The second one is Mark 10:42-45. Jesus called them together and said, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life in ransom for many." This one really hit me when I was in college. It's really when I learned more along the lines of leadership isn't just doing, it's actually serving. This truly probably was, for my career, switched my thought process. And to be honest, it really switched when I started with scouting and my first nonprofit. Because going into it after college, I was very fortunate that I've always had leadership roles, whether it be starting my own company or becoming director of finance or whatever it was. I always had people reporting to me. To be honest with you, after I met with Ronnie, and I got the offer for scouting, and I tell him this all the time, I actually wasn't going to take the job because I told the salary to my wife and thought she was gonna tell me no. And to this day, I'll never forget the day I told her. She said, "Oh, so when are you gonna start?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm not. It's a 60% pay cut. There's no way I'm gonna do that without bonuses." And she looked me in the eye because I was working 120 hours a week for the first 5 years of marriage, and it was all downtown. So I only saw her one day a week for dinner, and that was Sunday. And so I told her that, and when it happened, she looked me in the eye and said, "So in essence, you're putting a dollar value on our marriage. Because this isn't working for me." So the next day I called Rodney and made probably the best decision after my marriage that I made and joined scouting. And truly it was there that I told Rodney, and I've told others, and I've told Clyde, I was fortunate to start my first company at 21, and I will tell you, when I was working with scouting and watching Rodney lead, I realized I could never work for myself when I was 21 because I had the attitude that, I'm in charge. It's my company. No one can tell me anything. Obviously, whatever I do is right. I was 100% wrong, and I didn't realize that until I got into nonprofit and realized that really the heart is serving the others. And one of our volunteers, actually Chuck Hoover, actually explained it to me best, where everybody looks at a leadership chart as a pyramid, where there's the leader and then those under them, middle management and the employees and everyone else. And he's the first one that actually showed me that if you turn it upside down, that's actually what makes a successful company. Because without the employees, the middle management don't have a job, then the leaders, and then whoever's in charge. So for me, that was the first time I always acted that way. However, it was the first time that it made sense to me that without the individuals under you, you have no job, and it makes your job so much harder. So with scouting and any other nonprofit, as you know, the volunteers make a nonprofit. And without that nonprofit and those volunteers, it makes it so much harder for everybody else. The third one that I've come up with, or that I do, or I read with Amelia, is Philippians 2:3-4.
Yes.
Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility value others above yourselves, and looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. This is where I found out it really means to me, am I leading to help people or to prove something? Am I listening or just wanting to speak? And do I value others or just tolerate them? So this was really, for me, it signifies, am I willing to give others the same respect that I want to give to myself? My thing is, I prefer to listen, and when I get to know somebody and build relationships, I prefer to actually know something about them and make it personal. Again, a task I learned when I was with scouting was, one thing I saw was individuals would call, and I would call on volunteers or donors, and they would make the comment, oh yeah, it's that time of year since you only call me once a year. And for me, that was a slap, even though I might have just started, it was a slap in the face. And I remember going to Rodney's office and saying, I don't even know this guy, I've never called him, why would he say that? And then I took it offensively, because I never want somebody to think the only reason I'm friends, or I call, or I do something with someone is because I want something. So for me, that's when I made a realization that, all of these individuals I have touch points, there has to be multiple touch points. And I went home, and I remember the first time it happened, I went home to Amelia and I told her what happened, and she said, well, so change it. If it's on your list, change it. And I didn't, because I didn't want somebody calling us for something like that. So for me, that was something that really hit home, and something that I changed. And it also made me realize that, you know what, I make mistakes every single day. You know what, I'd rather be the type of person that messes up and goes to whoever and say, hey, this is my fault, I did it, and fix it, rather than be the type of individual that blames others and goes towards or takes credit for something that they didn't do. The next one is really the one recently that really hit home, was Luke 12:48. But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten with few blows. From everyone who lives, been given much, much will be demanded.
Yes.
And from the one who has been restrained with much, much will be asked. So this is, for me, it really is, the more your words matter, and it's more about the character. So this one really hit home for me a couple years ago. So a couple years ago, I've been very fortunate in my life. I've been very fortunate in the fact that I played sports. My college was basically paid for because of education and athletics. Even when I tore my shoulder, I was a pitcher. So even when I tore my shoulder, I thought they kept telling me that my baseball career was over, which was fine because my school was paid for. To me, it didn't matter. I graduated college. Literally the day I graduated college, I had an offer with Merrill Lynch. I took it. One of my fraternity brothers was a scout for a baseball team. He needed someone to fill an extra space because he had some teams coming to do a tryout. He ended up calling and saying, hey, you just need to call and come up, shag a few fly balls. I just need one more person here because they need at least 30 or the teams won't show up. So I drove to Youngstown, ended up going catching balls. There ended up being 4 teams instead of 2. Ended up getting futures contract offers by all 4 teams, signing with one of them. Blew my shoulder out again. Before I did that, during negotiations, they wanted to send me to A-ball, which is rookie ball. I had at the time started a company which was in Akron. I told them, well, I already have my house. I don't want to live with 4 guys in an apartment. Let's negotiate. I have my house. I'll do this. You pay me whatever, but I'm only going to show up for trainings, my practices, and then for the games, I'm not living with them. Ended up going to spring training, blew my shoulder out for the second time, but those 2 weeks were amazing. From there, started a company, sold it to the state of Ohio, moved down here, started a company, got into healthcare, got recruited to take over a group of 94 for the Cleveland Clinic. My wife hated Ohio, so we moved back down to Georgia, and then got into nonprofit and did some work in consulting and everything. And so I've been very blessed. But this verse specifically makes me realize that you think everything is on. When people would tell me things, I always compared it to, oh, this is how my work life. This is, I'm successful in my work life. I'm successful here. I'm driven to, lead this team or become this title or have this company or do whatever I wanted, make X amount of dollars. And that's truly what drove me my entire life, really. I was fortunate. Yes, I was married and I've always had somebody there, whether it be wife, girlfriend, whatever it was. So it never, not that it wasn't a priority, because my wife's always my priority, but it wasn't something that I needed to work on. So for me, it was like, that I didn't think I needed to work on. Let me rephrase that. Yeah. So for me, it was like, okay, yeah, I have a wife. Have you met my wife? Or something along those lines, because I was focused on, well, if I'm successful at work, I'll be able to give my wife whatever she wants. She'll be happy. As long as she's happy, that's all that matters. And 2 years ago, something happened where I wasn't being the best person I could be. And I didn't realize that I wasn't treating her how I should be treating her or how I wanted her to treat me. I didn't think about it at the time. It didn't matter to me until it got blown up. Pretty big for me, where I ended up losing, basically getting an ultimatum like, hey, this is what's going on. You either need to come and do this and so we ended up leaving my job, leaving a lot of things behind. The next day, I was on a cruise with my wife and went through and had everything. So we're stuck in a room half this size, literally, after going through, hey, this is what's going on, I want to make you aware, what are we going to do? And it was funny because I remember I had 2 calls I made, 3 calls that day when everything happened. First one was obviously to my wife. Second one was to Clyde, and the third one was to a friend of mine. She's an attorney. That like, hey, I wanted to let you know this is what's going on. What do we need to do? And it was funny because I felt that was the first time I can honestly say I felt alone. Where, hey, I dug myself in a hole. Now I gotta get out of it. How am I gonna try and maneuver myself out of this? And I will tell you, my wife is by far the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I will tell you, she is amazing. But I will also tell you, like, I knew I loved her, and I knew she loved me. She's my wife. That was the first time that I ever felt that I was in this alone. Like, whatever I did day to day, I knew I had a partner and someone was there to support me. Because she could have easily, like, it wasn't anything horrible, but it was something that she could have easily turned her back on me and been like, you know what, this is too much for me, I'm out. And she didn't. Her first thing was, okay, it happens, let's get this taken care of. And she stood next to me. She went to all these events. My third call was to her boss to make him aware because I didn't want him to affect her job. And he sat down and he called her and he's like, hey, let's go have a meeting or whatnot. And she told him what happened, I told him what happened, and they ended up calling me and we all met at a restaurant. And he's like, listen, he's like, I don't care what he's saying, what somebody was saying about me. He's like, I know who you are, it's not a problem, I know it's not what happened. He's like, I've known you for years, don't worry about it. He's like, this is what's gonna happen to realize who should be in your life and who shouldn't be in your life. And he's 100% true, because there were individuals that I would talk to literally 6 days a week that all of a sudden turned their back and were like, yeah, no, we're not doing, you can't help me grow in this aspect anymore, or you can't help me, so we're good. And so for that one, that's when every single morning we wake up, we say, because for me, I didn't realize I was straying away from who I wanted to be and who I know I am. And what I found was, for me, I was craving the attention of, oh, I'll go to work 9 to 5 or whatever, and then 4 days a week, I have these happy hours and I'm meeting with all these individuals and oh, this is, who doesn't want this? Who doesn't want to walk into a room and have 60 people come up to you and say, hey, let me do this, or how can we do this, or let me cut you this check, or do this. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm great at my job. I love doing this. Until somebody makes a comment that isn't true, but people start believing it. And when that happened, I've never had my entire life crumble before. And so after that happening, I was very fortunate because after a week on a ship with my wife, we were good. We were good anyway, but I knew that we were in it together. And for me, I had offers to stay in Gwinnett, and my fear was I didn't want anything to affect her because with her job and still in the same circles and everything. So I took a job that took me in consulting outside of Gwinnett publicly, but I was still in Gwinnett privately with 4 nonprofits. And finally, after about a year and a half later, I got an offer to work for a school in Atlanta. And Amelia's boss was the chair of a nonprofit in Gwinnett. And they had offered me a position a couple years ago, which was where I am now at school. And I remember he looked at me and said, hey, if you're leaving consulting to go work for a school in doing development, why don't you come and just work for a special needs school? We already offered you a position, just take it. And I said, well, you don't have it, you're not hiring. That was 2 years ago. And he called me 2 hours later, said we had an emergency board meeting, and it's anonymous, we're matching everything that they offered you, just come work here. You have 48 hours to tell us your answer. And I remember I called him and I said, or while he called him, I said, yeah, well, I want to talk it over with my wife, and then I want to talk it over with, Jamie, because that's who I'll be reporting to. And he said, your wife was my first call. She's excited. So you go and talk to her about it. But other than that, I expect your answer. So I took the job, and now it's funny because I've been here a year, and I've been in Gwinnett still, and now doing development and everything. But it's funny how many of those individuals that turn their back on you want to come back, and all of a sudden are like, oh, hey, now can you make this connection or do this to me? And the last one that really hits home is Luke 12:48. But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten a few. Did I already say this?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So that I skipped one, but that's okay. So basically, every day when we go through those, my big thing is I found out it's for myself. It's so I can center myself every morning and know that my goals are to treat people right, serve before anything else, and don't dominate. Lead with humility, and then take responsibility seriously. But it also makes me realize that I know, not that I ever thought I know I'm not a perfect individual, but I also know that with the strong individuals I have with me, the individuals like my wife, like Clyde, like Buteless, individuals that check on me on a regular basis and, hey, what do you need, and things like that, I don't need anything else. And for me, I used to think that, when I would go, my driving force was, okay, well, I want a job that's gonna, if I walk into the room confident and, I want authority, and I want to know when I walk in that people know my presence is here. I was looking at all the wrong things, because all I care about is when like today with what I do now, I really never have a bad day at work. I love going to the work and seeing the smile on these kids' faces. About a month ago, I worked for a special needs school, and a month ago, I had 2 Little Caesars pizzas given to me, so I just took it and gave it to the young adults. You'd think they just won the lottery. I've never seen anybody as excited for Little Caesars pizza, but they just never have a bad day. And for me, I never realized that there was a plan laid out until I took that job, and it made me realize that everything happens for a reason, and I'm just truly blessed for how it's laid out for me. So that's all I have today. So that's it. Thank you to all of you.
Well, thanks for being so transparent. And I'll say myself, I learned, you learn more when you observe different situations like the special needs children. And I went on a mission trip to Honduras, and down there we were building a church, and all the kids from the village would come up, and their teeth were rotted out, and they were missing teeth, and they were sleeping on dirt inside of a cardboard house. And they were the happiest people. My brother had a hat, a cowboy hat, and at the end, after he was through, he didn't need it to shield himself from the sun, and he gave it to them, and they just lit up, like you're talking about the kids did on pizza. And then last year, when I went to Southeast Asia, I stayed in an orphanage for about 9 or 10 days. And the kids just come up. They were Vietnamese. I couldn't speak to them, but you don't have to. They just love
Amen.
you. You just go up and hold them, and they come surrounding around you. So yeah, you learn so much when you get out of this, American society where it's all about money and
Yep.
people and everything like that. So I'm glad you found scriptures here that help ground you day in, day out. You got it all on video there, right?
Yep. You're in trouble.